I'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. I'll introduce the panel members first. I'm Marcel Larondo, I'm the chair today, and Linda McFadden to my left, and Maurice Tarien to my left, far left. Assessor today is Merrick Krolik, and the administrative assistant today is Kara Balshaw. We will be hearing applications for revision of assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussions to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony. Anyone speaking to the matter must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessment of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by a council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decision with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after the applications have been heard. The board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will then receive orders by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We put our phones on silent as well, please. Swear them in, please.
Do you swear?
I swear.
Please state your name.
Spirit God.
Do you swear the evidence you present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name. Do you affirm the evidence you present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
First property up, I guess it's up 3 times, but we'll go with, there's 3 points on all 3 of them?
Yep.
And what are the 3 points?
In my discussions with Mr. Neufeld, I think it's only an evaluation. That's class and liabilities, has not been disputed.
We won't be presenting any evidence on it.
Class
We're
three.
not withdrawing it. We're not presenting any evidence on it today.
You're not? On any of it?
Not on class liability.
Not on the class side? So you're accepting it, or you're signing it off, or
Yes.
you'll be signing it off on the class side? And on liability is the same thing, you're signing off on that?
Yes.
On all 3?
We'll get there.
We'll deal with them one at a time then. If you could start with the first one then, please.
Yes, before I start off, I do have a question with regards to some preliminary issues that have taken place, and there will be a recommendation made as well. But in Mr. Neufeld's brief,
Sorry, we're not reviewing my evidence at this time. We're not presenting liability in class, and I will not address any information on mine.
well, there's an issue with regards to post-reference material in the brief.
We're not looking at it. We can withdraw that issue if he has a concern with it.
You want to have it withdrawn and
Okay, so the pages that are in dispute are pages number 2.
so
And the reason why they're in dispute is because for the 2017 reference year, the reference date is April 1st, 2014, which means that we use a 2013 mailer.
page 2,
Okay. And then page 4,
page 4,
page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, And on page 9, there is some material here which is after the reference date. And there's some information, some rents here that are before the reference date, so it's.
What's the reference date?
The reference date is April 1st, 2014.
So you're saying the ones that are after that.
Yeah, so any dates after April 1st, 2014.
Okay,
And and nothing further for.
Nothing
on this
further?
project.
thank you. On with your,
Just to clarify the reason that you would want that withdrawal, that was all post-reference material?
That is correct.
Thank you.
and you've agreed, so let's move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the property in question that we have is file number 18811. Roll number is 060917-13100. Address is 343 Cache. And the owner is Cache Facilities Limited. The initial 2017 value was $3,348,000. I had the opportunity to inspect and review the property and like to make an adjustment to that, which includes my recommendation. My recommendation for everyone's review is from $3,348,000. Oh, I just passed it.
Oh, one of each or what?
Yep, one of each. My recommendation will be cutting the assessment to $2,929,000.
To what?
$2,929,000. $2,929,000.
You're rounding it.
Yep.
Are you okay with that, Rick?
Yes, I have a couple questions, if that's okay.
Shall we hear the other part of the information first then?
If the questions are short, because my presentation will review any questions that may take place.
I'm just wondering was this, you said that this was based on a review of the property?
Review of the property.
Physical inspection?
That is correct.
Okay. Was it inspected before the supplementary was issued?
There were two, we noticed that there were some issues that had taken place. One that was a positive for the owner and one that was a negative for an owner. What we had done is in our evaluation, initially we had the square footage being too high. We had the square footage at over 18,000 square feet, which was incorrect. And so I adjusted that to be the actual square footage of 16,712. And subsequently for the parking that's adjacent to the property, even though the owner had completed the mailer stating that there were 45 spots, in our review that we had done with this property last year, we were told by the managing company that there was 49 spots. But I had done a physical count, I inspected the property and I counted 47. So which is why in the recommendation I'm using 47. My brief has all the information with regards to my methodologies and my approach.
Can you give me that number again? 2 million?
$2,929,000.
Okay. Are you okay with it now?
We are gonna have to review it with the client, of course, but we will accept it, and I would, if it's okay with the secretary, I would like to withdraw my evidence for 2017 completely.
Is that okay with you if you withdraw this evidence?
Well, for me, it's about being fair and equitable. There was a mistake made.
Yeah.
I want to fix the mistake.
Okay, so
May I ask
we
a
have,
question?
yeah, just let me get
Oh, you're
to
not
the end.
done?
I'm not quite done yet.
Sorry.
So that's the 2 million, and you want your evidence withdrawn, and you're okay with it. Now, if you have a question, Morris?
Yeah, because I was looking at pages 18 and 19 of the city, and there's a breakdown between two amounts here.
Yeah.
Could we get that new breakdown, or you're correct, that 2
Well,
million?
what I had done was,
Because I'm trying to figure this out here.
okay. So on page 18, what had happened initially, and because let's start at the beginning, because this will actually sort of help out.
Well, I'm not trying to stretch this out, Mr. Chairman, it's just that
Okay.
there were two amounts. You're giving us one amount. Do we have a breakdown on that new sheet of the two amounts or not?
You mean between the parking and the,
Yeah,
between the parking and the
Yeah, the
building?
parking's there.
on this sheet here?
Yep. It's the very first one. It's the one that says PST.
Okay, I
So
see.
that's the parking aspect of
Okay.
it. And the next portion is
Okay,
the,
823 to 789. Okay, that's what I was looking for, because but you've got that there, that's fine. I don't wanna
Yeah.
stretch it out too
And,
much, I just
and-
want to understand it.
and with good reason, because the client was shocked with regards to why their assessment went up so much. And when we review the process, because initially what increased this is because if you look at essentially what it boils down to, the property is located at the corner of Relay and Cache. And I have pictures of it that had taken place. So if you look at page 4, and because this property's never been appealed in the past, we realized there was an error in place. So see the new silver building there? That's a brand new building. That's where they added additional 1,200 square feet. And so it's a full area. And so with that expansion, it's a brand new, lots of natural light, nice waiting room area. Page 6 shows some basic pictures of the adjustments that they had made.
Are you gonna cover that in your next,
Well, because I'll be also making a recommendation for the 2018-2019 appeal. I just want you to get an understanding of what the building looks like, interior-wise.
Got it.
And page 8, and then subsequently, that's the foyer when you walk into the building. And page 8 is the picture of how it looks like right now, what they've done with the space. And it's an older dated building. There's some nicer areas in there, but the medical offices are pretty basic. And the reason why I'm going through this right now is because I didn't include pictures in my 2018 brief. I just made one copy of your briefs, and I've created briefs for 18 and 19 for your records. But I just wanted to not create another 15 pages of documentation. And the other point of increase is why the assessment went up so much initially is that on page, initially on the previous assessment, they're only stalled for 25 spots, which we had wrong. And if you look at page 24, I've numbered all the stalls. We were told 49 by the management company that does the parking, but I did a physical count of it, and we have 47 spots there. So that's the other reason why their assessment went up.
All done with this?
Any other
yeah,
questions?
and that's,
You
it's
okay now?
nice when you do an inspection, it really helps.
Well, yeah, and the point is, there was a mistake made on both counts, and I wanted to make sure that we got it right.
Linda, did you have any follow-up?
I don't.
No? Then let's move on to the next one. Next one is, are we dealing with liability on this one?
No.
No? Are we dealing with the classification? No, we're not, we're just dealing with the assessed value?
Correct.
And you're gonna make the rec, you said?
I will. My recommendation is, I'll go through the entire process. For file number 18810, roll number 060917-13100, address is 343 Cache. Initially, the assessed value was 2018, reference date April 1st, 2016. Assessed value is $3,956,000. And my recommendation is to cut the assessment to $3,573,000. Mr. Therian? I'll pass that to you.
Are you okay with that number?
I'd like to review that. I think so.
You okay?
My turn, sorry? Yeah, yes, so we'll have to present this to the client again, but for today, yes, of course.
Are you withdrawing your,
We are withdrawing that
are you
evidence.
okay for you to withdraw this evidence again?
Yes, well, because there's not as much post-reference now because the reference does change, but there was some.
Withdrawing it completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's withdrawing the whole thing.
Completely.
Okay.
Okay, so that does that. Any questions of the assessor? Maurice?
No, I'm fine, thank
Any
you.
questions, Linda?
No.
No? Then we'll move on to the next one. Next one. Same thing on this one, we have, this is just assessed value, this one, correct?
Yeah.
You had it marked as 3 points for some reason.
It is.
It is, not on here.
That's since you're one ahead.
I'm on ahead now?
Yep.
There's a 2019 and 18, they're separated because of the supplemental.
It might have all been in the same bundle, I think.
Yes, they were.
Yeah, because this file number should be 812.
That's why there's two covered
Okay,
pages.
no problem, I got it now. So no evidence on this one presented, I take it.
We put ours together.
Yeah,
but
there's a
Yeah.
brief for it, it's just
Yes.
the same brief.
Yeah,
Good enough.
it's already withdrawn.
Read it on and tell me what your rec is.
Okay.
And, oh, are you dropping your other points on this one?
I am not contesting them, no.
You're not? Okay.
File number is 18812. Roll number 060917131100. Address is 343 Taché. For the roll year of 2018 with the reference date of April 1st, 2016. We have assessed value of $3,956,000. I'd like to make a recommendation to the board to reduce the assessment to $3,573,000.
You okay with that?
Yes, and just one question if that's okay. I'm just noticing this now. It says, I was away for this, so this is a genuine question.
No problem.
A recommendation will be made at the hearing. What is the reason for that? Just wondering why it was at the hearing and,
Because I have to consult with my supervisor with regards to the value
okay.
that was going to be presented at the board.
And was there a reason it couldn't be done in the brief?
I hadn't been able to meet with him. So I felt comfortable with regards to the value of the property that I had had. But the point is, if it doesn't have my approval of my supervisor, then I can't move forward with the
Fair enough,
recommendation.
okay. Sorry, I'm just curious. I was genuinely curious, that's all.
Okay.
And, yeah, and,
Sign off on another point?
He's not withdrawing anything.
I'm not withdrawing
And
any of
his
the other
evidence.
points.
Just the evidence.
Yes,
So we're
just my
still
evidence.
considering class liability
I
and.
thought he said he wasn't challenging.
I'm not
it.
challenging it, but we're not withdrawing it. I just had no evidence for it.
Okay.
He's not presenting anything on it.
Okay.
I believe is the thing.
Okay, so it all stays the same, good enough.
Yes. Sorry, I'm under orders too.
That concludes the matters for you, I'm afraid.
Do you have one more copy of the rec? It's okay, I can.
actually, you know what, I do.
Great.
Because I put 2018, 2019 appeal.
You're done, thank you very much for your presentation, sir.
Thank you.
Which one?
We should have.
No, I just.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's exactly the same thing, Chris.
Thank you.
That's for 19, okay. He hasn't given this for 19. We got it for 18, so
Okay.
just for the record of this.
He's gone already.
Yeah. You want just to put them in, or? Looks like it's not ready.
Hmm?
I said it looks like it's not ready.
You wanna shut the mic off for a minute?
Yeah.
You sit it.
Sid Story.
Do you swear the evidence you present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have a bit of a preliminary issue when you're free.
The preliminary, before we start, you mean?
Yes.
What is it that you're trying to?
We have a significant amount of post-reference information in the assessor's brief. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
In my brief or your brief?
Your brief, the assessor's brief. Can I pass that?
Yes.
I'll go through the brief if you like, Mr. Twain.
You don't want to bring it up when he brings his information, or you're just making it?
Well, we can expedite it. It's a bit,
Thank you.
and you can, we can even,
Well,
my
there's a way to
request would be to
there's a-
withdraw.
There's a way to expedite it, we'll say, do you have any problem with,
Yes, I do,
do you have a problem with what he's supplying?
unequivocally.
Okay, then let's hear his presentation, and you can challenge him on
Oh, okay.
each one of these things,
Okay, thank you.
okay? When you are ready, sir.
For file number 18803, roll number is 05009427580. There's no physical address, and the owner is Randroy Sales and Leasing Limited, and the assessed value that we have for 2017 is $6,655,000. It is a vacant parcel of land. The land area is 782,352. And the visual of the land area is on page 2. So if we're looking at the property here right now, it's on the northern edge of northwest Winnipeg, on McPhillips, just to the south of the property. So if you see where the development is, on the lower side, on the bottom right-hand side, there's the, for reference, if you're familiar with the Co-op gas station.
You have page 2 there? Are you on
Page 2.
2?
Yep. So if you're looking at McPhillips, on the bottom page of McPhillips, at the very bottom left-hand corner, on the east side of McPhillips, that's the Co-op gas station. And on the west side of McPhillips, that's a car dealership. And directly to the north of where the gas station is and where the car dealership is, that's where the road for the Chief Douglas development is coming through. And so in situations like this with vacant parcels of land, we're looking at what is the highest and best use for the land, and what's the potential value for the land, and what the marketplace dictates for parcels of land like this. So what we have here is a parcel of land that we're looking at, and you'll see this later on my brief, is the circled area in the red. And it's going to be similar to other developments that have taken place in the city of Winnipeg and Bridgewater, and also in Sage Creek. So immediately to the east of this property, you have multifamily homes being built right now. You have residential homes being built, and there'll be a significant residential neighborhood being built in this area. So when we do valuation of properties, we're always looking at the highest and best use and what's the future potential of the land. Because there's a huge demand for housing within the city of Winnipeg, this development in question will be called Aurora. Page 3 shows the plans for Aurora and what they're planning to do with this parcel of land here. The bottom of page 3 shows the different components of it that are taking place, and it clearly shows where the future Chief Douglas trails are going to be coming through on Main Street. Page 4 shows detailed information on phase 2 of their plan with regards to where the future development is in the light blue. The orange is where the multifamily is, and the other types of housing to the east of it, on Phoenix Way, and some of the streets are there, Gate, Vegas Street, And the main thoroughfare throughout that divides the area is North Point Boulevard. There's going to be a pond there, and there's other residential homes being developed. Plans also include areas for schools and park, which is located on page 5, and some of the plans for this. Phase 4 shows the next section of development that will take place. That will be south, that's almost diagonally southeast of where the commercial property is on phase 4. Page 6 shows that all the builders that are being involved with building properties in this area. Page 7 shows future parks. It shows some streets of some of the multifamily homes here that are located at. And page 8 looks at what the property had looked like initially. So what we've done with regard to comparable properties, I've taken properties that are in areas within the perimeter that are close to being the same size in terms of it's hard to find parcels of land, vacant parcels of land that are over 782,000 square feet, but I've tried to come as close as I can to it. So what I've done is I've had a more detailed analysis, but I have sales comparables. And before I start off any further, the $6,655,000 that we have here is based on $8.50 a square foot. And I didn't mention that sooner, and I apologize. But it's important to reference when you're looking at my comparables. So what we've done here is my first comparable, and this is just an overview. I have pictures on the other page. Vacant parcel of land on Sterling Lion, sold for $5 million in June 2013 for $8.76. Sage Creek, which is actually very similar in terms of the development potential, because when this parcel of land was purchased, it was very similar to the parcel of land that's being developed with the subject property, in terms where you had a vacant parcel of land, there were some homes being built there first, and then there was the commercial development. That comparable, which sold for $5,960,000, also same zoning, was at $11.23 at the time of sale in 2011. St. Mary's property, more fully developed, on July of 2011, at 489,000 square feet at $11.13. And then what I also tried doing, my next two comparables aren't on the same sort of major thoroughfares as McPhillips, Sterling Lion, Sage Creek, and St. Mary's, but they're close to the area. So both of these properties are on Templeton and Amber, very close to Pipeline, which is very short distance away from the subject property. These parcels of land sold for, relatively speaking, for $7 and $10.33. One was in March of 2011, the other one was in November of 2013 at $10.33, but they don't have the same sort of visibility, the same sort of traffic as a subject property. Last property I have here is also probably the more developed area, and it's on Plessis Avenue at 314,000 square feet. That sale price is $11.13, which is significantly higher than the $8.50 that we're using. So what I've done here is I've just shown some additional shots of the subject property, just to give you a better feel for it. And you'll see more information with my comparables later. So page 9 just shows an overview shot of the commercial property, how it's zoned, where it is in the big picture of the urban development landscape. Because what will happen is that there'll be vacant parcels of land that exists that are close to residential homes that take place, and there's an opportunity. So this opportunity of land that was purchased fits in with what else is happening in other parts of the city of Winnipeg. Page 10 shows current pictures. Page 11 shows that Capital Commercial Real Estate is looking at potential tenants for leasing opportunities within the area. Page 12 shows multifamily homes. Page 13 shows facing southbound. Page 13 shows where they're actually, Manitoba Hydro is out there marking boring holes for future construction. And page 14 shows the actual holes being built and what they used to view as a marking. The bottom of page 14 shows how the zoning is for the different areas. So they anticipate significant commercial activity both on North Point Boulevard and South Point Boulevard. The property in question right now that's under appeal is the North Point Boulevard space, which is what I'd show here. The red C4 zoning, light brown is R2, yellow is R1M, brown is RML-L, dark brown is RML-S, and green is parkland for parks and recreation passive. So, what I've done on page 15 is I've shown comparables of what these parcels of land looked like before the development had taken place.
Can I just stop you for
Yeah,
one second?
of course.
Sid,
Has to
you're
take
okay
place.
with the number, aren't you?
Yeah, we accept the number.
Okay.
Yeah, because
So we're exactly the same number.
His number was higher than yours.
Our number
so-
is 850. We've got the same number.
Okay.
So do we have to continue presenting on this?
No.
Well,
He's not challenging it.
okay,
Okay.
because that means that,
I'll look
okay.
at his brief.
Well, I understand that, but it's just, I thought maybe he was coming in with a different number or anything like that.
No, that's what I just said.
So if he's going with 6 million,
We're 6-6.
yeah, 6 million,
He's good with
You have
your
to just check our brief. It's
He's
exactly
good with
well, I
your
saw
number.
the brief there, but I just,
Same number.
I thought you had
Your
mentioned
number-
you had issues
Your
with
number
regards
was
to my
higher, by the way.
evidence.
Just rounding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but your number is.
Well, I understand that, but the point is, it's just, I did a lot of work here.
No, I just going,
Obviously paid off.
you're okay with his number at 6,655,000,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay, so let's just leave it at
Accept
that.
it,
It's good, thank you very much on that presentation. I didn't mean to cut you
Look,
short,
oh,
but
but
you did such a great
Marcel,
job.
look at this, look at the documentation here.
I know, I saw it.
It's bang
And
on.
we don't have to worry about this sheet now.
I don't need any of my sheets.
Good.
Okay.
Okay,
Gonna-
let's move on to the next one. Unless you guys had some questions.
Well, no, I hadn't looked at the,
No.
I hadn't looked at
I
the
had the same
appellant.
question.
Well, and I understood that as well, but the point is, I thought there was a revised position,
Yeah, yeah, it's okay.
Well, that's why I figured I might as well stop and
Well,
ask.
yeah, I know. But
Well,
Marcel, you gave me the forum here to speak, and I did so much hard work and effort here,
It's okay.
I wanna make sure that the taxpayers of Winnipeg see that there's good value in the work that I'm providing.
Definitely
Always.
good value.
I'll tell them.
We'll tell them too. There's always good value when you do that.
It was a very,
Okay, so we're on the ballpark, are we?
Yeah, we're on the ballpark. This one won't be.
Excuse me.
oh, that's the ballpark, okay.
Take me out to the ballpark.
I wanna know why I get this thing every year.
Well, actually, this is actually different, this is just like a condo unit that's separated, so, yeah.
Okay, lock and load.
Just want to make sure. I had the 18 first, so that's why. File number 18825, roll numbers 12097, 806435. Address is 100-1 Portage Avenue East. For the reference year of 2017, using a reference date of April 1st, 2014, we have the value of $824,000. Because the ballpark was built before, but for this actual space, the actual year built is 2016 for this space that had existed here. We have wall height of 11 feet. We have a leasable area of 5,467 square feet. Page 2 shows the pictures of the property. Page 3 shows the office space. Quite nice, new and modern, reflective of a 2016 build. Page 4 also shows some other pictures that we have here. Top of page 5 shows the lunch area. So the lease information that we have for this property for the Patterson Outdoor Advertising works out to a monthly rent of $5,010.50 on the information that we've had here. Mr. Story has provided updated information on this brief. So the actual rent that we have here is $10.93. What we've done with our market valuation is we have comparable OFS properties. C2 class leasable area of 5,466 square feet. We're using a rent of $12.83, which is slightly higher than the actuals that are existing. We have vacancy loss at 9.5%, expenses at 7%, shortfall at $650 to come up with a net operating income of $55,649. Using a cap rate of 6.75%, we come up with $824,000. So what I've done is I've taken a variety of OFS properties, which is defined as being office suburban, and the smaller in size than say an OFA, Z or C or D. And my comparables range from $10.60 up to a high of $24. A lot of them $10.76, some of them $12, $15. So there's a range. So based on the range that we have here, when I took out the outliers and looked at all these properties here, the average worked out to $13.53 when I took out the very highest one and the very lowest one, because the property on 158 Fort is a normally high rent for that type of building and area. So based on that information, I believe the $12.83 is fair. Page 7 and 8 is our information with regards to cap rates. And that concludes my presentation.
Sid, any questions?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Falk, you mentioned, and I marked it down, but I can't find it. You mentioned that you're using a market rent of under $10, did you say, if I'm misunderstanding?
No, our market rent for this property is $12.83.
$12.83, okay. And what does the actual lease at 55,000, what does that work out to a square foot?
Well, the information that I came up with was $10.93.
$10.90. So the actual in-place lease is $10.92.
That's correct.
Okay. And you've got the clay oven, that's a restaurant with 2 skyboxes, correct?
Yes.
And it's on the 3rd floor versus Patterson on the 1st.
Yes.
Okay. And then you mentioned, on page 6, you mentioned that when you got to your comparables at the very first one, it seems high at 158 Fort. You're aware of that property that used to be Great Canadian Travel, it's now a daycare, but in addition to the building itself, there's 31 parking stalls. Are you familiar with that? It's a daycare now?
Yeah, it used to be European Health Spa.
Yeah, before that was European Health Spa, and then it was Great Canadian Travel. I actually sold it to Mr. Johnson. So hardly comparable.
Which is
The
why,
subject property has
which is
zero-
why in my analysis, which I had
You
stated
didn't use-
before, I took it out of I took that as a highlight. That's why I spoke to Mr. Story.
Yeah.
Because I said it seems abnormally high. So when I took out the highest one and I took out the lowest one, the average works out to $13.53,
Okay,
which is higher than the $12.83 that we're using.
okay. And does the subject property have any parking included with the lease?
Not that I know of.
Okay, I can tell you no.
Okay.
Okay. And this has not just parking for the building, but all of these do actually, so I can get into them. And going back to page 2, that's the front of the building. The entrance to this space is further down it's on the right side of this picture, correct? This is a plaza you're looking at.
This is the plaza, yeah, it's just the front part. Is it right underneath Clay Oven there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you mentioned that on page 3, that this is new construction. The ballpark's 22 years old, and this space has been vacant for 22 years. You aware of that?
Yes, about what I had stated, because it's on a separate roll number within the building itself. The finish here is not reflective of an area of space of 22 years, which
Okay.
is why we used the 2016.
But you're aware that it was vacant for 22 years?
Well, it was, I'm sure it was space used by the ballpark, but I'm not.
No, it didn't have a floor until this tenant came
Okay,
in.
well, I'm not familiar with the space. So you'd agree with me that this is a high-quality space then?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay,
Okay. It's
But if it were-
it's underneath the grandstand.
okay.
Okay. That's just opinion though. I mean, it's
Well,
pretty.
but it looks,
Sell
it looks
advertising.
brand new, sir. It doesn't look
Yeah.
like a
Okay,
inferior
those would
property.
be all my questions, thank you.
Modest, any questions?
Well, yeah, I was looking at your page 6, your comparables, and I had a problem with your mathematics here. I took off the highest and the lowest, and my average came out to 1619. You mentioned 1353,
Yeah.
so I thought my colleague was.
Well, I took
looking
out
at
the
same-
$24,
Yeah.
and I took out the 1060. I took one of the lowest ones that I had.
Where's the 1060?
There's a 1060 right at the top at the Dublin Gas Corporation at 268 Fort.
Yeah.
No, it's not
No,
there.
it's not here.
Where's it
Okay,
there?
and
Really
this,
took it
no,
out.
pardon me, 268 Fort?
It's not there.
Not here.
Okay,
We don't have that.
okay.
No, we got, the lowest one we have is the 155 Fort at
Which is-
948.
Yeah,
Right.
145.
Isn't 268 for Domo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
It's not in your list.
Okay,
It's not on our
so you know,
list here.
because I had two different reference years, and my comparables for 17 are more than my comparables for 18, 19, so I do apologize. So for whatever
We're
reason,
looking at 17 though. Here, we're looking
and
at 17.
I got
on this list.
17 here.
Yeah, we're
We
looking
don't
at,
have the same list.
No, yeah, so,
yeah,
Are you
we're
saying
looking
it's
at,
on
because the outlier, okay, because when I took out the outliers on on the one that you're looking at, let me just confirm this. Did you guys come up with 1429?
1619.
And we got a very different list.
Oh, here's,
Very
yeah,
different.
his other list is here, the one he's working off of is on the other one.
That's the 18
Okay,
one.
well, we're working
Yeah,
on the
so-
one,
That's still not 268 Ford.
no.
Oh, no, it's
No,
not 268 Fort.
No, it's
We don't have-
150.
We don't have 268 Fort.
They're not comparable anyway, Mr. Chairman. so we don't
No,
Yeah, exactly.
no, there's
Anyway.
three issues here that I was after. One was what we were working out, and I knew my colleague was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
We had a difference. Not only that, you mentioned the lease at 1093. Where's the evidence of that? I know I saw a sheet somewhere, but
What I had done is I had to go with 5,000, 10.5 times 12 divided by,
It's on page 5, Mr. Chairman.
that's what it is, so I never worked
Page
out
5.
the average. That's what.
1093-2.
That's what comes out to your, so
Yeah.
that would be at least start of May 13, 16, and the other March the 1st, so the 16 one is out of the reference period, correct? Because we're looking at April the 1st, 2014.
Yeah, well, this was the lease that was in place, right?
Yeah, I'm just
And so,
trying to work things out in my head here, what you're asking and why you're defending that, that's all.
so, just to clarify then, when you came up with the average, if you took out those outliers, what was the average rents then?
Legal 16.
1690.
Okay, which is even, well, significantly higher than the 1353.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah,
the thing is, when you're arguing something and we got some different evidence, it's a little confusing, right?
yep. But the intent's the same.
Linda, do you have any questions?
I don't think so, no.
Do we not have any, well, I guess we don't have any other office space in that area, do you? Yeah, you do. Come a little further, what would the rents be for the office space to the west of the ballpark?
That's in my brief.
Oh, I'm just wondering why you didn't use any.
Which ones?
There's office space to the west of the ballpark. Would they not have been closer?
Those are OFBs, those are significantly different buildings. This is like a one unit, one space sort of area, so that we, for characterization purposes, we call this like a single tenant office suburban location in OFS. So, because it's a condo, it's almost like a condo unit within the ballpark, so it's like one separate place. Because if you're looking at other rents, like the similar ones on Provencher, just on the other side, that are part of the multifamily complex at 147 Provencher, those rents range in there from $12 to $18. And I actually have that in my brief that I had with Mr. Neufeld.
Okay, so,
But the point is that those ones there.
It's a residential.
I'm asking
No,
a question right now.
but, Mr. Story,
Yeah.
it's multi-use. The
Okay.
main floor, what does it consist of? Is it residential, Mr. Story?
I don't know the property.
I'm sure you do, Mr. Story. 147 Provencher is commercial activity. It's not residential.
But-
And then the upper floors are residential.
I'll get on to my questions yet.
I want clarification.
This office space
Yes.
is below ground, is that correct?
No,
There's
this is on the
windows?
third floor? No, this is on the
No, it's
first floor.
it's on grade level and there are some windows.
There are some windows?
Yes, there's 3 windows.
Oh, yeah, right, I
Yeah,
see.
it's under the grandstand, but they made 3 windows looking out onto Pioneer. You can see the picture,
That section there.
yeah. Actually, the front page of our brief, that's your one. Front page of our brief shows the windows.
I haven't looked at your.
We haven't got to your brief yet.
I'm still asking
Right.
the
We're working
assessor's
on this one,
information.
otherwise we're all over the
I want to be one at a time,
Okay.
if you don't mind. No, don't confuse me today. Okay, I'm good with the assessor's information for now. Let's move on to your presentation.
Was that a model-driven rent that you used at 12,
Yes, it was.
was?
Yeah.
Mr. Story, kick it up.
I had some follow-up questions for the assessor, but I'll do it as part of my brief.
Hey,
Okay?
are we dealing with both of them at the same time?
Yeah, we might as well. Well, our position is the same, it's
Yeah.
$11, it's a new lease.
Okay, and what are your values again, sir, that you're looking for?
Both years,
649, 618.
So
649.
649 for 18, and 618,
No, 649 for both, which is the same $11.
okay.
649 for both.
It's 650 because it's, if you round that up,
Round, yeah.
you're not gonna round that down, you're gonna round it up to 650.
Okay, got me.
And you didn't get the city's numbers right either, so
Right.
No.
you inverted them and you
Yeah,
got,
yeah.
Reverse.
and you reversed it.
1283 is not 1238.
That's correct. You see it?
Oh, yeah.
You have a
Sorry.
very sharp panel here
I
today.
apologize, yeah, you guys are good.
How can you tell it's not appeal season? Because everyone's fresh and has their A game on. Math is bang on. And actually, in fairness to Mr. Story and both of ourselves, our workloads are actually the exact opposite because we're so busy right now with the municipal board stuff.
Yeah.
That,
Well, in actual fact, my son was supposed to be here, but he had some emergency surgery, so I'm here in his stead. He's much better than I.
Let's
You
get
ready
on
for
to your
me?
presentation.
Yes.
were you gonna ask me questions or no? Or you
No,
just-
I'll just bring it up in my
Okay.
summation, it has to do with your comments. I mean, I don't even have to after I speak about this. This is, if you just look at the photograph, this is a space under Pattison. I'm gonna give you, Pattison's at grade level. Pattison is an outdoor sign company. The ballpark is owned by the city of Winnipeg. I think it's very important, because it's not a condo development. It's owned by the city of Winnipeg and it's leased to Riverside Park Management, which is a not-for-profit organization, who in turn sublet it to the Winnipeg Gold Eyes, Inc., to a baseball team, which is for-profit. Because it's a city lease, this is really a sublet of the city lease. The master lease includes the acreage that the ballpark is on, plus the improvement, which is what you're looking at here. The Pattison space, it has its own roll number because it's a sublet of the city of Winnipeg. Similarly, Clay Oven has its own roll number because it's a sublet of the city of Winnipeg. There have been, in getting this lease signed, there have been multi-layers of approval and review. Because in the initial plan, that was approved. I wrote the business plan actually in 1997. It was supposed to be the manager's residence. It was going to be an apartment underneath the grandstand. But none of the managers, Helen, they would never live there. So they never built it, so the floor was never ever put in. It sat vacant for 22 years. So that's why it's on a separate roll number. Our position is, in this very, very unique situation, you can look at the in-place lease. The in-place lease is $11 a square foot. Pattison are renting it without any parking, zero. They're renting it because they perceive that there might be some synergies. It's high visibility driving by. The goal is own an electronic message center on a city property at the Island Parkade. So they negotiate an $11 a square foot rent. Is that reasonable? I believe so. Why? Because we go to page 3 of our brief. And what you do in a case like this is you acknowledge that in these, I'm going to call it an oddball property. It's a one-of-a-kind, single-purpose property. It's a baseball diamond and a grandstand, that it has to be classified somewhere. So the city classifies them ordinarily as an office building. And it's not an e-office building. It has no, it's a seasonal building that can be somewhat, can be closed for 5 months a year. It's funded by the city of Winnipeg. There are no realty tax paid on it, it's rebated. There's no amusement tax or rebated. I'm sorry, realty taxes, some portion is. So what we do is we look at the closest Class B buildings in the area, and as it turns out, the closest building to the subject is 191 Pioneer, which is a building I represent. And that's Manitoba Telephone, MTS. And it's a building with no parking. It's right on Portage and Pioneer and Main, so it's a little better location. However, it's a comparable, and its model rent is $11.19. So we have a situation where the actual rent in the specific use property is $11 a square foot. I can't find anything that would tell me that 11 isn't the right number. But if you go through these other Class B buildings, 333 Main is $14.44 because there's some fancy build-outs in there, some high leases. 330 Portage is also, 330 Portage is the Newport Center. 275 is the Kensington building, $11 a square foot. That's getting a little further away. 191 Pioneer is right on this, almost overlooking the site, and it's the model rents of $11,913. If you go to the next page, you'll see there's 191 Pioneer. There's your 7% cap rate. We use this decision, which is at $11.19. Then we've got 330 Main, which is right beside 191 Pioneer, also a Class B building, CMOFF.
Before I go any further,
Yeah.
the reference period for this is April 1st, 2014, which would mean all this information here is post-reference. You know, but I realize also that this building
Building
didn't
didn't
exist.
exist, the space didn't exist in 214.
Well, yeah,
And
but
it's a
I'm just saying,
single
but
purpose building.
the market rents that I had used is based on information that was taken from the 2013 mailers to defend the value. What Mr. Story is presenting here right now, and I'm not disputing the $11 rent, but what happens here as he's going through his presentation, he's bringing, you know, decisions that have taken place that were in 2018, which is an April 1st, 2016 reference period, which is fine for
The second one.
the second one, but for this one, that's not applicable.
And that's what he said, he was gonna do both at the same
I
time.
mean,
Okay, I know, but it,
Because the property
but you
didn't
really,
exist.
but then he doesn't really have anything to present,
Not for the,
not for 2017. That's fine, he could say this for 2018, but in
Well,
fairness,
my position is that the lease, the actual lease is what should be used regardless. So then do with reference, this is a supplementary, the property didn't exist at the time. Pattison, I think, still had their manufacturing, they're probably that far back, so they wouldn't have been. And in any case, for whatever it's worth, that's our methodology. If you go to page 8, this is the in-place lease, it's 10 years, started February of 2016. It's 5,644 square feet. The lease is $11 a foot, 12 and 13, but through the first 2 years, it's $11 a square foot. Again, I indicated this had to be vetted by all levels of government and whatnot, and so this is just the present, this is the breakdown of the lease. It's a 10-year lease, and this is 10 years of how the payments will be. So, with the best information we have is office space and that's utilization in proximity to this. I believe that there's office space at 191 that would be a good benchmark for the board. But the actual in-place lease is really what I think the fair market value is for this property. I think that Pattison, I think there's a very limited market for it. It's a property that you can't get onto it 50 days a year, they're baseball games, so parking's a problem for 50 days. And the other times it's a bit desolate, there's nothing happening there, it's essentially closed, it's on skeleton staff. It's in a seasonal building. Installation has been put in here and on the floor of clay oven because it's a grandstand. It was built not as a four-season building. So I think $11 is reasonable, and I respectfully submit $649, $650 rounded for both years, based on the fact that it's a supplementary. And we know that there's market rents in the area that run anywhere from $11.06 to $11.11. Thank you.
Questions?
With regards to the comparables that were used for this, what's the square foot of areas for these properties here? It's my understanding they'd be significantly higher than the 5,000 square feet we have on this subject property.
Yeah, what happens is these are office buildings that have one assessment roll and tenants, and the tenants, of course, have demised space.
Okay.
The
And
ballpark, because it's a city lease, it has to have its own roll number.
Yeah,
If it weren't a city sublet, it wouldn't
yeah,
have.
I understand that.
Yeah.
And so,
So they're, yeah, the 191 Pioneers, these are big buildings, relatively big buildings, but they're Class B buildings right downtown, as close as you can get to the ballpark and be an office. So if you're looking for utility, it would be an office. If this is an office, sales office, then the closest sales office would be 191 Pioneer.
so for 191 Pioneer and 333 Main Street, you know what the actual rents are for these buildings?
Well, they're all different. In 191 Pioneer is the one, I don't know how, if you did this, Meredith, you might have.
You and I both did it in 2016,
Yeah,
I
there's
believe.
some tenants in there that were bargained at $7 a square foot.
And that's not what I recall,
Okay, it was
because,
the lease in the executive off, but as I recall, there's 2 floors that are very low. And I think that this is what the decision was for 218, is they're $11. I think they're $11 to $12.
yeah, I think they're more like $13 to $15.
It could be, but they're built outs, and it's an office building.
Yeah. No other questions?
Linda?
I have no question.
Morris?
Yes. I was trying to work out his fingers here. So if I go to your page 2, I guess it's fair to say, I'm just trying to confirm stuff,
Yeah.
that the city's assessment is $824 versus your $650. That's correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, on your page 8, you say at least 10 years. I don't know when the at least start February 16th of what year? Because we don't have leases here, we're just.
February 16, 2016.
Was that what you meant?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, I should have picked that up.
Five
So
and
that's the post-reference issue that he's raising, but you said.
But it's a supplementary, you have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe to speak with regards to
You have no
that.
choice, you have to pretend it exists.
Yeah, okay. The other thing is a point on no parking.
Yes.
You made the point that 50 days, because of the ball games, there's no parking.
Yeah.
Well, not sure that's the case, because it's only when you have afternoon games that you got a problem with parking. It's not during the day, because you know,
No, that's correct.
we all go there,
There's a
we
few,
know what the
there's a
score
few-
is.
You're a share, you're a
Yeah.
season ticket, I recall.
Yeah.
There's 3 or
So I
4
know how
days
it
in
works.
the afternoon, but there's, we won't say no parking, but there's a parking, there can be a parking challenge. You
Well,
can imagine
that's a
if-
little different. You said 50 days is no parking.
Okay.
I wrote it down.
Okay.
So I'm saying,
50 games.
I don't think it's quite the case.
Yeah.
Is all
When the
I'm
games
saying.
are on, there's no parking, but yeah,
Yeah, in the day,
Yeah.
during the day.
during the day.
And I assume Patterson operates during the day here?
Yes, absolutely. It's a sales office.
Okay.
And they go and they negotiate their own monthly parking in close proximity, I believe.
So the lease, you're using the argument on page 8 of 11 to 12, and you're basing that, like you're saying, 34.50, or what are you basing your increase of $1 on?
Just to get them there? To
Just-
get them there, it's a very difficult property. How do you lease it's a concrete grandstand that they're renting office space in. So they stepped it up because they wanted to get them in at 11. And there's very few people that would be interested in being there. I think Mr. Foley mentioned it's a low ceiling. They've had over the many years, they were entitled under the initial master lease to have a sports bar. But Mr. Ledahowski, a number of people have looked at going in there, but nobody did it because the ceiling height's too low. You see it in the pictures.
The seats, the wall height is 11 feet, it says.
Yeah, it's 11 foot all, so they
It doesn't seem
determined it
that
wasn't.
low.
Well, if you're building a restaurant or a nightclub, it's gonna be low. In any case, they haven't been able to lease it for those years. So they were lucky to get anybody interested in it. And Pattison, I believe, are there, and they might even be paying a premium because they envision some synergies. There's a lot of signage.
Is that the Patterson Group? or-
Yeah, the sign.
It is, eh?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
How does this become a separate roll number on city-owned land that's leased out to another corporation who builds it out?
Because of the lease with the city of Winnipeg with the Riverside Management Group, it's a separate business. It's sort of similar to like a condo, where they occupy a certain amount of space, and this section is taxable. Mr. Story had mentioned the fact that the aspects of the ballpark that are covered under the lease agreement. Well, this is a separate business identity. It's just like Clay Oven is a separate business identity, and they pay realty taxes as well. So the arrangements that exist for the ballpark are different than the arrangements that take place for Pattison for Clay Oven, which is why they have two separate roll numbers.
So they pay taxes, but they pay rent to,
They pay rent to,
But they have an assessment, their own assessment.
they have their own assessment.
It's because it's a sublet of a master lease with the city of Winnipeg. The ballpark, if they had their druthers, wouldn't have it in the master lease.
so,
They'd have separate assessment.
and that's where I'm coming at. Because it's a sublease,
Yep.
the city has to approve that sublease, correct?
Yes.
Yep. So that's what Mr. Story
Yeah,
was
there's
referencing.
many layers of approval.
Right. So, once they've approved the sublease, does business tax automatically apply to that?
Though, because it's a business tax as an occupancy.
And it's an office. It's
Yeah, as an office, yeah.
It's not a business, Clay Oven pays business tax. The
Yeah.
ballpark pays business tax.
Well, and it's based on the
But
threshold, right?
Not the office, not Pattison.
Pattison does not,
No, office tenants don't pay business tax.
but this is
Yes, they
office.
would. Because their threshold would be $81,000. So I don't have that documentation in front of me, but if they're paying realty tax,
Yeah, I don't
it's
believe-
my understanding that they'd be paying business assessment tax too, because business assessment tax is an occupancy tax. So
Yeah.
we're going, for 2018, it's the, whatever the model rent is,
Yeah.
plus $2.30. So
Okay, I
I'm
don't
not too
think-
sure where Mr.
I don't think it's been
Story's
assessed yet,
coming
because I
from.
haven't seen it. But I thought it was exempt, but no, you're right, it's not exempt, you know.
It's not exempt, it's an office, so it will be up for office tax, business tax,
Business tax, yeah,
eventually.
yeah.
And that'll be caught, I'm sure.
Well, it's under a roll number, right? So I'm not too sure if Mr. Story appealed it or not.
He didn't know it was theirs.
We looked, it was- I don't think
he
the city has it yet.
I haven't.
And this is a new sub, so we can't appeal them until they're done.
Yeah, oh, I understand that, yeah. But it's,
They're aggressive, but not that aggressive. You gotta let them think that.
well, all I know is when there's some questions that arise, and so,
It's because of the relationship, the lease, it's a sublease, so it has to be approved by the city.
Yeah.
And it goes all because of the relationship with the city and the tenancy. It's vetted all the way through the system.
But there's similarities with this with multifamily where there are condo units that are owned on waterfront or on, in
But
different
the
areas.
city's not involved.
No, the city's not
The
involved.
city doesn't know what the
No.
actual
Yeah.
is. In this case, they've approved this.
Yep, yeah, the
$10.
PPD
Approved
is
at
going through
$11.
that process, yes.
Yeah, so PP&D is approved of the lease at $11.
Yes.
Okay, that was all I was trying to get at. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have another one that come up. In your, I assume that all your orders, board orders you put in is to justify your 7% cap rate. Is that
Well,
where it's
it's
there?
7%, but also,
Because the city's at 6 3/4. So
Yeah.
I was trying to find out why you threw that in.
well, we were 7 on all of it, that's what we used on the.
That's
on
why you
our-
threw
our
that in
workup.
as evidence?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you may, Linda.
So just to be clear though, you've shown a compression in the cap rate
Yeah,
between 2017
Yeah,
and
it's
18.
half a point.
Half a point.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're saying that the cap rate should be exactly
Should be
the same
7,
on
yeah,
both.
it can, it's a sup, we're pretending it existed. It's a high, I don't even know how you would assign a cap rate to this thing because you can't own it, it's owned by the city.
Okay.
So it's, the cap rate is
So,
a bit of an exercise.
so I'm
But
sorry,
this-
but the cap rate for 14 is 6.75, is the one for 16, 6.5?
6.25.
Oh, okay, I haven't looked at that yet. Okay, I guess I'm just dealing with, I'm trying to get my brain on one, then I get all confused otherwise.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so, because I was looking at your sheet of comparables, and obviously, they're not consistent, because you show 7 on page 8, while it's 6 3/4, so it's hard to make a proper comparison
Yeah,
when we don't have the
yeah.
same facts here.
Can you read the second one on?
Yep, for sure. Roll number file number 18-826. Roll numbers 12-0978-06435. For 2018, we have assessed value of $937,000. Information is the same with regards to the building. Pictures are the same. Only difference is in the valuation for this property is that the rent has gone up by a small margin of 13 cents. The rent that we use for this property is $12.96 for the rent, using a shortfall of 7% vacancy of 7% and a cap rate of 6.25%. We came up with a value of $937,000. The rents that we have here have a range from $9.48 to $24. We spoke about some of the issues that have taken place there. Because we had a calculation, the average rent for this property is around $14. Because there is something that had taken place. I can redo the math. If you give me a sec, let me just. It's $14.29 when I took out the outliers. When I took out the fresh projects, the one on 155 Fort and 158 Fort. So which is significantly higher than the $12.96, and all other information is the same, with the half difference in the cap rate. Because what we had noticed from 16 to 18, that the rents were more flat, they didn't go up as much, but there was a drop in the cap rates with regards to the cap rate analysis we did with sales.
So what was your comparable figure now?
$14.29.
I think,
14.29?
we'll see if Sid has any questions.
Yep.
Okay. Can I ask a
Yes,
question?
please.
Yes, if you go to page 6 in the brief, this is on your rent comparables.
Yep.
Okay, you talked at length that the 158 Fort may not be comparable because it's got significant parking where the subject has none. Would you agree with that?
Well, I don't know the lease agreements with regards to that.
No, we
In their
drive by
income,
these.
in their income and expense mailer, they do not show anything other than a $24 net rent. So based on that information, we're basing that it's a good rent. If there are spots here, I haven't seen any information otherwise to
Okay.
state so.
Have you made any comparable adjustments for location, land to building ratio, anything? Or is this purely what you found in the questionnaire?
Well, what had happened here is I want to be consistent with you using the same property type. I want to use OFS buildings. I don't want to pick up square foot areas that are in excess of 100,000 square feet of leasable area.
Yeah, but have you, my question is, have you? Okay, let's go
No, the
next.
question is, so to answer your question, there was no analysis done
There's
because
no
what I've
there's
done,
no comparable adjustment for location or size or age or anything.
well, as opposed to the comparables that you have referenced, my comparables have a range of 1,091 square feet to 9,100 square feet, which is more realistic compared to, well, you didn't bring comparables, but compared to the.
I did bring
You
comparables,
brought
191,
you-
333, those are comparable.
Those are assessments, and when
They're
reviewing.
not assessments, they're decisions, but we
They're-
won't
well,
argue.
no, but they're decisions that are
155
taken.
Fort, that's a gym.
Let me finish, because on a residential perspective, when we talk with property owners, we don't compare assessments, we look at sales and we look at market evidence, like market rents. So by comparing assessments and decisions, you gotta be comparing apples to apples here, it's not apples to oranges.
So are
And
you-
in your presentation here, you haven't presented an apples to apples argument, you've done apples to oranges.
Have you now, you're now talking about decisions and comparing decisions and assessments, you don't compare decisions, is that what you just said?
What I'm saying though is that in the information that you've provided, is you've provided no market evidence, you've provided decisions.
I think that's better, isn't it, than having unadjusted market evidence?
Well,
Okay, and so 155 Fort, the 2 on Fort are across the street from 158, and that's, they call it the GM building, but it's an old, it's a building that's been recently refurbished, correct? Do you know the building?
there have been some issues that have taken place, but were those refurbishments taking place, because the lease, one of the lease was signed in 2012, one in 2015. When did these refurbishments take place?
I don't know, I'm asking you.
Okay.
You're using it as a comparable.
I'm using it as a
And
comparable,
you're quite a
but-
bit below. You're hang on for it, you're $948 and $10 on the two, on that building, correct?
The effective year built for these buildings are 1974.
Okay.
The quality and finish of the building that we have here is 2016. And so I'm comparing apples to apples here with regard to the space.
226 Osborne is a former blood donor clinic, blood clinic, is that correct?
Yep.
And you're aware, I think, I hope, that it's on, the building that faces a fountain on the ledge?
Yep.
And it's got indoor and outdoor surface parking, outdoor and enclosed indoor parking, are you aware of that?
The information here is the rents that they provide us do not factor in parking, so if there's any other information
But the
beyond
building
that.
has it, the building is parking. And why would it not affect, you don't know if the parking's included or not in the rent?
They don't state that parking's included in the rental income and expense mailers.
Are you aware that the building, that you have the option when you lease that building, that you can lease it furnished or otherwise? It's like a business center?
Well, what they provide us is the information on the income and expense mailer. Anything that's beyond that would probably be more reflective of a lot higher rent than what's provided on the.
So you haven't made any adjustments for the points I just made?
We're dealing with actuals of what they provide us.
Okay.
So these are actual rents that they provide us that is legislated by the income and expense mailer process.
What's your best comparable?
What's my best comparable?
Yeah.
There is a range of comparables here, so
No,
what
what is your
I've
best
done,
comparable?
what I've done here is I've provided a range of market rents. This is, when I look at this, the building, the comparables here that take place are near finishes here. So the 226 Osborne's would be closer in the quality of finish of the building.
Okay, and it has indoor and outdoor parking.
But they don't.
And it has offices that your leases may or may not include include furnishings?
Do you have any evidence to prove that, Mr.
Well,
Story?
you have, I'm asking you.
Well,
These are your
what I've done
comparables.
here is that we go through a process where we have income and expense mailers, and we verify that. And so if it was a situation whereby it was something out of the ordinary,
Yeah.
because when we do look at business centers and their rents are significantly higher than the evidence that we presented here. A case in point is the Henderson Business Center that we have as well, where that's a business center and their rents are significantly higher than what we have
Well,
here.
they would be because they have other services.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a ballpark. These are people that are using the underside of the grandstand. They used to use it for batting practice on the far end. These are not typical
So
offices.
the pictures that I've provided in my brief, is that reflective of a ballpark area or space? It's a nice quality finished building, Mr. Story.
Yes, it is. Of course it is. I'm not here to okay, I'm fine, thank you. Fine with my questions, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to present really quickly on my brief, if you can.
Just 1 second. What is?
Yeah, well, I know my colleague raised the cap rate
Yeah.
compression. What are you using in page 7 here to back up your, what's is it the office one, is it the,
Well,
which one?
when we look at the quality of space here, right? So if we're looking at office space, right, for OFA, OFB, the range that we would use for these properties, because is it an OFA, which is on a quarter of Portage and Main? No. Is it an OFB, which is a lower style building on this? No. Is it a suburban A or suburban B? Like all these things, so if I look at the space by itself in a suburban location, the range would be 550 to 6.75%. We're within that range of little office spaces on the model that we used.
So you're using which one?
Well, if we use office,
Yeah,
right, and if you look at the range of rents that we have,
550 to 675?
yeah,
That one?
that's the 20th and 80th percentile.
Yeah, okay.
Linda,
I have no further questions.
on with your presentation. You're gonna finish your presentation again, I guess, right?
No, just very, very quickly, I just want to bring up one page. If you go to page 3 of our brief,
Get back to the old one.
these are the Class B buildings, and we've gone through this before with single-purpose buildings downtown. We said if it were to be an office building, it's definitely not an A building, as Mr. Mayor just said. Portage and Main, we got 6 Class A buildings, it's not even an office building, single-purpose building. We consider it, because of its age and because it's very nice and because people are paying rent equivalent to a C office building downtown, that's because that's how it performs. Now, if you look at page 3, these are decisions of Class B office buildings downtown. That performs, in our view, based on the type of use, which is an office use, based on the rent, $11 a square foot. We think it performs as close as anything to a Class B building. It's not a C building because there's no deferred maintenance or anything of that nature. These are the decisions. So when you say, okay, now if we're gonna treat it as a B office building, then what are the parameters? What's the model that the city would use? Well, these are the decisions, and the model rent for Pioneer, which is the closest of all the buildings, is $11.18. The model vacancy is 9%. That comes from the city, not us. The cap rate the city used on that 218 with the 216 reference date, and don't get lost in the reference date, this lease started in 216, was 675. If only because it's atypical, it should have a higher cap rate than a B building, and the B buildings are 675, so 7 is not inappropriate. This is the actual assessment for 218 that came about when it was after, came out the preliminary decision before these properties were heard, and all of them were heard, and 2 of them, I think Mr. Merrick and I did, the 191 Pioneer and 333, I think. The decisions were changed, the cap rate was changed, 218 decisions based on 216 reference to 7%. So we're suggesting 7% is, because it's an atypical building, because it performs like a B building, as close as a B if you want to create an office. It's atypical, it's not real office space, it's very nice, it's simplistic, which is workspace, and that's what the new genre want in office space. So yes, but it's in a building, it's been vacant for 23 years. They're happy to get the rent they're getting, it's been vetted all the way along. There's no argument on the rent. The cap rate, if a typical Class B building with tenants and vacancy, is 6 3/4. Atypical ballpark office space has to be higher. And with that, I submit that the 650 rounded is appropriate for both cycles. Thank you.
Questions? To you first.
In the Class A buildings, are they not significantly higher than the subject property?
Class A?
Class B buildings that you provided here for comparables?
Higher in what, rent?
No square foot area,
Oh, yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
And so when we
If
look,
you take the building itself, but the individual tenants, of course, are smaller.
okay,
Like, or could be the same size.
but if we were looking at the space per se and the cap rate that we've used, office space for suburban A and B is 5.5%.
Well, but you understand that you can't take, you can't take that tenant space out of the ballpark and sell it. So there is no cap rate for it. You should be using the ballpark cap rate, which is 9.5%. You can't take it out, there's no market for it. It's because of the system, the city owns the property. And it's the city, and the city approved an $11 lease.
Yeah,
And
but,
the city let them change from a sports bar that nobody wanted because the roof was too low, whether you believe it or not.
well, for a
And
sports, for a
restaurants want
sports bar,
patios.
11-foot rent may be too low, but for an office tower, 11-foot roof is more than sufficient.
Well, that's what it is, that's why they're using it as a.
Well, so to be saying that they, maybe it was vacated for 23 years because they didn't build the ballpark sufficiently enough to have a bar or a restaurant there.
They didn't build the building sufficient, the
Well,
ballpark, so there's something wrong with the construction of the ballpark?
No, what I'm saying though is the use that they wanted to have a bar wasn't maybe functionable for, which is why it was
No,
vacated for.
they were allowed 2 tenants, other than themselves, 2 sublets. One was for a restaurant that could see the games, i.e. who's on first, and one other space which was to be a residence for the managers who didn't want it. So they then said, could we try to lease it to a sports bar, and they were given permission to lease it to a sports bar as long as they didn't have the LTs.
Yeah.
So it's sad, so they've talked to everybody about going in that space, but there was no demand, whether you believe it or not, for a restaurant. If there was a demand, it would
Well,
be
I'm
there
not,
now. But it isn't, so it's used as
What I'm
office
saying
space.
is that if they had looked at maybe leasing, trying to lease that space as an office space a lot sooner than waiting for 15 years or whatever, then maybe the situation, it wouldn't have been as vacated. Maybe there would have been other.
Well, there has to be a
development
market
that
for it.
was-
Somebody has to want to rent something before
Yeah,
you
but
build it out.
they just did it initially though, because if there was an opportunity for the building to have leasable tenants, you know, it's a desirable spot and the space is
Do you agree that
desirable.
you can't pull this roll number out of the building and sell it? Do you agree with that?
I understand what the limitations of this.
And you understand that the cap rate, 7% is ridiculously low because there's no opportunity for a transaction. Anyway, I think we've heard
Yeah.
enough about ballparks.
I think that was a question, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
asked one question? Okay.
Yeah.
You have another one?
No, I'm good, we've
Okay,
beaten this horse.
Linda, do you have a question?
No, I don't.
Do you have a question with this?
Well, thank you.
I have a question for you.
Okay,
Pattison,
yeah,
you don't refer to what their lease was.
$11 a square foot.
Pattison's $11 a square foot?
Yeah, that's what we're doing today.
No, no.
Where have you been, Mr. Chair?
No,
What's the one downstairs?
Oh, no, you say Clay Oven upstairs.
Because Pattison's now taking.
Patison's downstairs.
They're the ones that
It's
just
off-
signed this lease.
Clay Oven was upstairs. It used to be Who's on First.
Yes.
And that one, they pay $15 a square
Yeah.
foot, but they get the patio, which overlooks the game,
Yeah,
and they also get 2 sky boxes.
yeah.
And the sky boxes they use for private functions, but they pay higher. They also walked into an existing if you folks remember, Who's on First when it closed, was beautiful. I mean, it's a nice restaurant. They walked into that, so the air makeup, the everything's there. They got knives, forks, they got everything. It's all part of that lease.
And so prior to February 16th, that's when it went, did it go onto the roll in that year in 16?
No, Clay Oven, and I don't know where you got your dollar amount, Sid, because it's not on your brief. So on the lease information that I have access to,
You got, but if you go to the lease information, doesn't tell you, and you guys don't look at it closely enough, Clay Oven's utilities are in their lease rate. Their actual lease rate's $15 for the build-outs and everything.
okay, but so.
But it includes all the utilities, because it's not the building wasn't built as a four-season building. Pattison, on the other hand, pays separately for the.
So Pattison has been there since 2016.
That's correct.
Prior to that, it had no roll number then.
That's correct.
It had no floor. There was no floor, it was just gravel.
Everything else, well, yeah, the windows there was closed off, it
Yeah.
was just the floor wasn't.
Yeah, but there are no washrooms or,
No, they hadn't completed it because they didn't have a tenant.
they were gonna build a manager's suite, but they never did because he was.
So it sat vacant for all those years.
Yeah. And then the city allowed them to look at another use, get a tenant from the.
Okay, I'm good.
I just have a quick summation.
Sure.
With regard to the property value for 2017, the evidence provided today by Mr. Story is not reflective of an April 1st, 2014 reference date. So it's my opinion that the value should be confirmed at the $824,000 because of the information presented from the hearing. Because that information that had taken place, all the comparables, all the decisions, a lot of the words that were spoken was post-reference. For the 2018 model evaluation year, the information is reflective of what had taken place during the 2018 appeal process and the decisions, but the comparables being used or the discussions that had taken place did not consist of any market evidence other than the actual lease.
Can I ask you a question before you
Yep.
do your summation? Only because I asked you that question about when it became functional. You said 2016.
Yep.
You're saying we should not look at anything before 2014, but
No.
PP&D did not even look at this lease until 2016.
We base our market rents and our analysis on income and for the 2016 and 17 appeal period as an April 1st, 2014 reference date.
In the condition it's in.
In the condition that it is in. And so when we're gathering market evidence to create the model, we're creating market rents that were taking place prior to in 2013, 2012, 2011, and the history behind that.
Okay, but you're showing an increase from we're seeing an increase here in your numbers from 16 to the next one,
From 17
to 16.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
It didn't
$90,000.
exist.
It went from 0 to 100. Bang.
Well, so but what we're doing though is the reference period is, what we're saying is if this building had existed on April 1st, 2014 in the current condition, right? It didn't come onto the roll through the supplementary until 2017, but in the current condition, if this building was on the roll as of April 1st, 2014, what are comparable rents that are out there in the marketplace?
What property, PP&D, would they not have looked at that when they were reviewing this rental structure and said, this is where it should be then? Because when they're doing their review, they look at the actual rents in the area
Yeah.
so that they're involved in it. They have people from your department, well, not yours,
Not from our section.
from the other section.
So, I understand that, but what I'm asking for, what I'm presenting here is that in the presentation that we heard, is that there was no actual market evidence showed on comparable rents before April 1st, 2014. Even in Mr. Story's presentation here, He has board decisions, he has no market rents.
But you've agreed that the city approved that final contract for those rents.
The city did, but what has taken place though is that I'm not familiar with their process, I'm only familiar with my process. And the information that I presented here today is on information based on what takes place for market rents through the income and expense management process, which is how we create roles and values, which is why I'm here defending the values that I've defended here today.
In your summation, Mr. Story?
Yes, thank you. This is a unique situation because it's a ballpark, it's not an office building. We have to come up with some approach to value. It's also a supplementary. It's a supplementary that it increased in value without existing. That's the unique situation the city has. Mr. Frolick is telling me the city also uses something, in my opinion, in error, and that's called lineal time adjustments. If that were the case, and we're going back to 214, then the actual in-place lease signed in 216 would be discounted, be less than $11. So and when you get to cap rate, it's a mute discussion because it becomes irrelevant. There is no cap rate because you can't take it, you can't separate the asset out of the major holdings. It's a city-owned property as well. City's approved it. It's went through stages of years of negotiation, I think, over a year, trying to get the final numbers, getting approval, first of all, to be able to offer it as a tenant to an office tenant. And so 11, I think, is the evidence. The city has used comparables that are not close to comparable, and without any adjustment. If you come in and say, I'm going to show you this park at the former Great Canadian Travel's got 31 extra parking stalls, but I made an adjustment. They're paying $16, but I made an adjustment. Or the fact that since they went in there, they built two outdoor, in your playland at 158, two outdoor playlands. They look like jails, so the kids can play outside. Are those paid for by the tenant or the landlord? We don't know that. But there's no comparable adjustments, there has to be. But this one is quite obvious. The Patterson Sign Company deal at arm's length with Riverside Park Management and the Gold Knives and the City of Winnipeg. They deal at arm's length. They negotiated a lease that everybody had to think was fair market value, they wouldn't have signed off on it. So that's the best evidence there is. So that's my stuff, thank you.
Everybody's good?
We're good.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you all.
gentlemen. Let's take 5.
Yeah.
Maybe
Thank
10.
you.
Try to straighten my brain. Hit the box, please.